For 5,000 years, every civilization on Earth built its towns the same way. The Greeks had the agora, the Romans had the forum, medieval Europe had the market square. Spanish colonial law, the Law of the Indies, written in 1573, required that every new town in the Americas be laid out around a central plaza before a single house went up. From Marrakech to Mexico City, from a Polish village to a Chinese market town, humans agreed on one thing without ever holding a vote. A town begins with an empty space in the middle, where everyone can stand together. Then one country broke the pattern. Drive into almost any American town and go looking for its center. Not the busiest intersection, not the strip with the gas stations. The center, the outdoor room where the whole town can gather. Keep driving. You won't find it. In the country with the biggest houses, the widest roads, and the most land on the planet, the one thing missing is the single oldest feature of human settlement. So that's our cold case. Because a 5,000-year-old tradition doesn't simply vanish. Something happened to it. And the list of suspects is long. First, let's be precise about what's missing, because Americans will tell you they have squares. Times Square. Herald Square. A plaza in front of every glass tower. Look closer. A real square, the kind humans built for millennia, is a pedestrian room bound on all sides by buildings. Doors open onto it. Life spills into it. Cars never touch it. Now look at the American versions. Every one of them is wrapped in moving traffic. Times Square is an island in a river of cars, and those corporate plazas from the 1960s cities traded developers extra floors in exchange for them sit empty except for office workers eating sad lunches, because a slab of concrete beside a tower was never a square, it was the costume of one. So the real thing is genuinely gone. Who killed it? Suspect number one. The car. Obvious motive. The car demanded streets, parking, drive-throughs. It wrapped every open space in asphalt and made standing around in public feel like trespassing. Guilty? Partially. The car finished the job, we'll come back to it. But the car can't be the whole answer. And here's why. European towns adopted the automobile too, and their squares survived. The Piazza in Perugia. The Rheineck in Krakow. Same car, different outcome. Something else must have made America uniquely vulnerable. Suspect number two. The shopping mall. It stole the square's function, the strolling, the gathering, the seeing and being seen, and moved it indoors, behind private doors, with a food court where the fountain used to be. And here's the twist. The mall's inventor, Victor Gruen, was a European and Austrian who missed the plazas of Vienna and honestly believed he was rebuilding them for America. He later watched what his invention became and disowned it. But the mall is a copycat, not the killer. It only worked because the real square was already missing. You don't build a fake town center unless the town never had one. Which brings us to the actual culprit, and this is where the case gets strange. Because when you trace the American square back to find the moment it died, you discover something almost nobody expects. Across most of the country, it was never born. The murder weapon is a document. It's dated May 20th, 1785, before the Constitution, before the White House, before almost anything. It's called the Land Ordinance of 1785, drafted under Thomas Jefferson, and it decided, in advance, the shape of nearly everything between the Appalachians and the Pacific. The idea was pure Enlightenment logic. Take the entire western frontier land no settler had even seen yet and slice it into a perfect grid. Townships, 6 miles by 6 miles. Each township cut into 36 numbered squares, each square priced, recorded, and sold to buyers who would never lay eyes on it. The land of an entire continent converted into identical rectangles of product before a single town existed on it. Read that ordinance closely and you'll find one detail that gives the whole game away. In every township, one square was set aside, by law, for a school. It's a genuinely noble clause. But nowhere, in all those millions of surveyed acres, was a single lot reserved for a square. A place to learn, mandatory. A place to gather, not even mentioned. Europe's towns grew outward from a center, the cathedral, the market, the plaza first, everything else attached to it. America, west of the mountains, was sold outward from a ledger. The grid has no center. That is the entire point of a grid. Every square is equal, and every square is for sale. A public square is a hole in the middle of the product, and you don't cut a hole in the product. So when the railroad towns and prairie towns sprouted across the grid, they grew as straight commercial strips, a main street, yes, but a street, a corridor for passing through, not a room for staying in. The oldest towns back east, the ones born before 1785, still had their greens and courthouse squares. New England kept its commons. Savannah kept Oglethorpe squares. They're beautiful, and they're the exception that proves the case. Where towns came before the grid, America has squares. Where the grid came first, it never did. And then, in the 20th century, the car came back to finish off the survivors. The old courthouse squares were ringed with parking, then swallowed by it. The commons got a highway on one side and a parking structure on the other. The few real rooms America had were unwrapped, lane by lane, until they became what they are now, lawns you look at through a windshield. Case closed. The American square wasn't murdered in the 1950s. It was written out of the plan in 1785 by men designing a nation as a real estate product, and the car merely buried the few witnesses. But here's why this cold case matters right now. America is living through what its own Surgeon General has called a loneliness epidemic. Nearly 1 in 3 American households is a single person. And every year, millions of Americans fly across an ocean, sit down at the edge of some ordinary square in Italy or Spain, a space that produces nothing, sells nothing, does nothing, and feel, for 1 week, strangely whole. Then they fly home to a country that decided 240 years ago that a place like that wasn't worth a single lot on the map. The loneliness isn't a mystery. We surveyed it into the ground plan. There was one place, though, where Americans really did gather the copycat, the fake plaza with the fountain and the food court. For 50 years, the mall was the closest thing this country had to a town square. And then it died, too. There's a video right here on what killed the American shopping mall. Same case file, different body,